In today's video, I'm going to give some feedback on an essay. Now, this is not a CPE essay. This is just a simple essay that someone has to write for a particular writing course. And I'm going to look at several things in this essay. Of course, I'm going to look at grammar and vocabulary, but I'm going to put extra emphasis on formality because that's something that people find difficult. And next to formality, I'm also going to look at paragraph structure. Does the author build proper paragraphs and does his message come across properly as well? So let's get to it and let's give some feedback on this essay. So this is our essay, and as you can see, we have a sort of assignment. The importance of cultural institutions such as libraries, theatres and museums. We also have some sort of title. A theatre a day keeps a doctor away, which is nice, which is a nice way of playing with the an apple a day idiom, so that's nice. Then we have some paragraphs, and I already see some good stuff. I already see that we have, first of all, secondly and thirdly, we have to sum up. So those are clear indicators of new ideas. Of course, if you have a first of all, you would like to have a second of all, and in this case we have a firstly. I would do firstly instead of first of all. So that's the first change I'm going to make. So let's start with the introduction. And as you know, an introduction of an essay should follow the funnel shape. So that means that it should start very broadly and then build up towards your thesis statement. So I expect to find something of a thesis statement at the end of this introduction. So let's have a look. Everyone who have ever visited a museum, library or theatre will recognize this. Everyone is laughing and having the time of their lives. After the pandemic, more and more people are rediscovering cultural places. To be sure, these kind of cultural activities will not vanish due to increasing costs and less visitors. It is time MPs open up their eyes and discover how important these cultural spots are. The government should support cultural activities to enlarge wisdom, social interaction and health benefits. So there are some issues here regarding grammar, and I think we should figure this out first. I'm not going to change everything yet because I have some other ideas regarding the introduction and there are some language things that we need to change. But let's do one of these things first, and let's change this have here, which should have been has, of course, because everyone who has ever visited a museum, library or theatre will recognize this. And I think this is a nice broad way to open up this introduction. Now, it is not very formal, and that would be one of my issues that I have. It's not a very formal way to start this essay, so I think that it needs some changing, but we'll see what we'll do later on. So everyone who has ever visited a museum, library or theatre will recognize this. Everyone is laughing and having the time of their lives, which is a bit of a hyperbole here. I don't think everybody is having the time of their lives at a museum. It could be, but I don't think that it's very common. So we could change it into something like everyone is having a good time. Visitors are having a good time. And then we get after the pandemic, and we need a comma here. More and more people are rediscovering cultural places. I think that's fine. Then we see, to be sure, these should be kinds of cultural activities will not vanish due to increasing costs and less visitors, which should be, of course, fewer, because we can count visitors. It is time MPs open up their eyes and discover how important these cultural spots are. Now, this should be MPs without the apostrophe. And I think we have something here, open up their eyes, which is a weird construction. Of course, we don't like having phrasal verbs or many phrasal verbs in formal writing. So we need to find a different way of saying open their eyes. And I already corrected myself there. Open up eyes sounds a bit weird. It would be open eyes. You open your eyes to a particular problem. And this is a bit informal. So I have an idea of how we can change this, and let's do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove open up their eyes and kind of merge together the message that MPs or the government needs to be aware of this importance. Because these cultural spots play an important role. So we're going to merge that together into the following. So I changed the open up their eyes sentence into it is time MPs must gain awareness of the importance of cultural attractions. So what we want to do is we want to convey the message that MPs and the government should be aware of how important these cultural ideas are. And that's something that we find later on in the essay as well. That's one of the arguments that this author is making. And I think this increases the formality while still maintaining the message that he wants to convey. Then we get the government should support cultural activities to enlarge wisdom, social interaction, and health benefits. I think this is our thesis statement. So as the sentence that precedes this thesis statement indicates, the government must do more to ensure that we maintain these cultural attractions. And why should the government do that? Because it enlarges wisdom, something with social interaction and health benefits. Now I checked whether we can say enlarge wisdom, and even though it's not fully incorrect, it is a bit awkward. So that's one of the things I want to change as well. And I think we don't really know what we're doing with social interaction, so we also need to add something there. First of all, I'm going to change the government into governments, because we're not talking about a specific country in this essay. It's a more general thing. So I'm going to say governments, and then I'm going to change the final part completely. So everything that's in this sentence needs to be changed because it doesn't flow naturally. It doesn't feel as convincing and as properly written as it should be. So what I've done is I've taken the 3 elements that this author wants to discuss in this essay and rephrased it into a properly written thesis statement. So we get something as I've done here. Governments should support cultural activities for their ability to stimulate social interactions, their educational benefits, and the positive effects cultural activities could have on people's psychological well-being. So I expect to read that there's something in this essay about the social interactions, and that while going to a museum or a theater might be useful for these social interactions. I want to read something about the educational benefits, so probably that you learn a lot when you're at a museum, and the positive effects cultural activities have on people's psychological well-being. Now, psychological well-being is an interesting word choice because I've chosen these words to kind of say mental health. I think mental health is not very formal, and although it's very natural in contemporary language today, we do need to use something like this, psychological well-being, to increase the formality and to convey the message of mental health and mental health well-being into something more formal. So this would be our thesis statement for this essay, and we can now have a look at the rest of the paragraphs and see whether it follows the right structure and whether everything we discuss in this essay fits this thesis statement. So our first paragraph starts with the sentence, firstly, a visit to a museum, library or theatre will undoubtedly enlarge your knowledge. For example, you're visiting an exhibition about Dutch. During your visit, you get to know more Dutch artists and learn more about their backgrounds. Maybe you will even get so excited about a specific artist that you are planning to buy a painting or a book. And at the end of your day, you will leave the museum fulfilled with new facts about Dutch artists and maybe even planning to visit another museum next week. Right, so the structure is fine. One of the most important things about essays is that you write paragraphs that follow one particular element. So you want a paragraph that's focused and concise. And I think the author has done that here. Now, my biggest issue with this particular paragraph is that it's very informal. We have lots of personal pronouns like you and possessive adjectives like your, and we want to avoid those things in formal writing. So I need to do a lot to repair this paragraph to avoid those informalities. So let's start by our topic sentence and see whether we can easily change this your here into something else. And we can actually do that. So by changing your knowledge into something like the visitor's knowledge, we've already avoided the first possessive adjective, your. Now, I don't really like the construction enlarge knowledge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change enlarge into expand, because I think that fits more properly. Now, I mentioned that the structure is already quite good, and I still think that's the case, but I do think that we need to add a level 2 sentence. So we have a proper topic sentence, but there is something missing between the example and our topic sentence. So I'm going to add the following sentence. So now I've added a level 2 sentence that kind of builds on our topic sentence, and it says, these cultural activities could connect people to new ideas and unfamiliar facts. Now, to increase the level of this paragraph a bit, I'm going to connect these two sentences with a coordinating conjunction, and I'm going to add as. So it says now, as these cultural activities could connect people to new ideas and unfamiliar facts. So now we have a nice compound sentence that increases the level of our paragraph. Then we get the example. And the linking word for example doesn't really fit the context properly. We have a for example and then a colon and then whatever follows, and that doesn't really flow naturally in this particular paragraph. So I need to make a few changes. I'm still in the process of filtering out all of those yous and yours, so we also need to do that while we're changing this paragraph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite it into something else, and I really want to maintain the idea of visiting a particular exhibition about Dutch or the Netherlands. So I'm going to keep that in there. So our new sentence would start with something like if, and then we would still get the for example, because I'm going to give an example. If, for example, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the passive to kind of remove the you in whatever follows now. So I'm going to change it into an exhibition about the Netherlands is visited, and we can remove everything that follows. Now we start our sentence with if, so that means that we need to have something else that follows. So we need to change it into something like this. We need to add a comma. More is learned about Dutch artists and their background. And that's basically everything that the author says in the sentence that follows. So instead of saying that if you go to an exposition about the Netherlands and you learn more about their backgrounds, I'll change it into a passive construction to avoid using that you there. And this, of course, increases the formality. So even though we're using the passive to create a more formal and more difficult construction, don't make it overly complex and don't try to form your language into something that doesn't really work very well. But I think we have something now that kind of works and that fits the context properly. Now we need to move on with the rest of the paragraph. Maybe you will even get so excited about a specific artist that you are planning to buy a painting or a book. Now this sentence is fine, but then informal, and I don't really like the use of present continuous here. You are planning to buy. So we need to change that a bit as well. Now the first thing I want to do is increase formality, and we're going to do that by changing the you into visitors. Now we get visitors will even get so excited. And I also want to remove even get so excited, and we can change it into something like this. So I've removed the idea that you buy a painting or a book, but I did include the idea of planning a new trip to a museum. And I might even remove that in this sentence as well. And I'll add a bit more reasoning to why this is important. So maybe visitors might move on to planning new trips to museums, which is a good thing, because then we get more people who go to museums, and then the government doesn't need to give all the money to museums. So that's a good thing. So I'm going to add the following. So I've now added a sentence and everything becomes something like maybe visitors might move on to planning new trips to museums, which in turn provide a financial incentive for creative sectors, which loosens their reliance on the government. And that's of course a good thing. Now what I want to do is I want to include a linking word. Then I'm removing maybe. Visitors might move on to planning new trips, so that's fine. But the link is a bit unclear. So why do we talk about the government now? While we were talking about learning stuff first. So I want something that links this together. And what I'm going to add is something in the sense of the following. If visitors become curious about these exhibitions, they might move on to planning new trips to museums, which in turn provide a financial incentive. I think this works. So if you go to a museum and you learn a lot and you become curious, you might go to other museums, which in turn provides a financial incentive for the creative sector. So that's good. I think we have a good paragraph here. Now we can move on to our second paragraph. And we had firstly in the first, secondly in our second paragraph, and that's good. We have something that says cultural activities and places are good places to meet new people. The benefits of going to a theater, so see an opera singer is like you will find yourself among other opera lovers. This makes it a lot easier to start a conversation and get to know new people. So the main point of this paragraph is that cultural activities and places are good places to meet new people. That's fine. And I'm going to leave that one in. The benefit of going to a theater to see an opera singer, so there's some grammatical issues here. An opera singer is that you will find yourself among other opera lovers. Let's add a bit of flow by kind of linking things together. So what I'm going to add is an added benefit of going to the theater to see an opera singer is that you will find, which is a bit informal. So what we're going to say is that people will come into contact with other opera lovers. All right, so we've removed the you will see other people and included this. Now we have this here, but the antecedent might be a bit unclear. The antecedent is a thing that this and that refer to. Now in this case, I think that it's okay, but what I want to do is I want to specify what makes it a lot easier to start this conversation. In this case, I'm going to keep this in there, but I'm going to add and specify what it is, mainly the shared interest. Makes it a lot easier to start a conversation and get to know new people. So we didn't change a lot. It might not be perfect, but it's fine for now. And then we move on to our third paragraph, which I think is the strongest argument you can make to go to something like a cultural activity. This paragraph starts with the topic sentence. Thirdly, having a great laugh or crying during a play or concert will activate your brain and neurotransmitters, which is of course true, right? You get new connections. This extra activity and new connections within your brain is clearly healthy for your brain and lower the chance of dementia or a stroke. Research shows that higher brain activity is beneficial for your health and improves the quality of life. This is fine. It's an excellent paragraph, a good argument. There are some language things that we need to change, and again, it has to do with formality. So what we're going to do is make what I call round sentences so that everything that should be in a sentence is in a sentence. That's important. And we're going to do that by saying the emotions felt, and then we remove having a laugh or cry, during a play or concert will activate your brain, which again, we want to avoid the possessive adjective your here. And I'll say will activate neurotransmitters, and we'll specify where those are, even though we know where these are, in the brain, and stimulate the creation of new connections. So the author mentions connections in the level 2 sentence, and I want to put it in the topic sentence as well, because I think it's a good statement, it's a good argument. So, the emotions felt during a play or concert will activate neurotransmitters in the brain and stimulate the creation of new connections. Now, a quick disclaimer, I don't know whether this is true. This is not something that's backed up by any research at this point. I don't think that was the aim of this assignment as well. So if you're someone who knows a lot about this, let me know in the comments whether this is true. But don't quote us on this because we don't know whether it's true. Then we get this extra activity and new connections within your brain is clearly healthy for your brain and lower the chance of dementia or a stroke, which I think is important and which I definitely want to keep in there. So we need to rephrase this a bit to increase formality again. And we'll get something like this extra activity and the new connections in the brain are healthy and lower the chances of dementia or a stroke. Now, lower the chances is not incorrect, but we do want to increase formality and show that we have a large range of vocabulary that we can use. So a broad range of vocabulary we can use. So we're going to say decrease, which is slightly more formal than lower. This extra activity and the new connections in the brain are healthy and they decrease the chances of dementia or a stroke. Research shows that a higher brain activity is beneficial for your health and improves the quality of life. So that's fine. And what we're going to change is again your and call it overall health and improves the quality of life. And I think we need to add one more sentence to emphasize why this is so important. And we're going to do that by saying further emphasizing the importance of cultural activities for societies. Now we have our conclusion, and our conclusion starts with to sum up, which is fine, but I think that I want to add in some. And then we have cultural institutions should be an important part of everyone's life to increase a fortunate and healthy life. I don't know what a fortunate life is, so we're going to remove that and a healthy life. And I don't know what increase a healthy life is either, so that's also a bit awkward. What we're going to do is we're going to say, in sum, visiting cultural institutions should be part of everyone's life to increase a healthy life or to ensure maybe a healthy life and stimulate. I don't really like this, so we're going to change it into something else. We're going to say should be part of everyone's life due to the many benefits. Usually I'd say summarize your main points, but I noticed that this author kept the conclusion short, so that might be done deliberately. And because it might be a deliberate choice, we're not going to add a summary of our main points here. What we can do is kind of mention what these benefits are. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to say that the arts serve great educational, social, and psychological needs, and governments should recognize, we're going to say appreciate, these benefits by making cultural institutions more accessible, or let's say accessible for, should be to more people. Visiting a theater should not be a privilege, but a custom thing to do on a regular basis. Right, so now I've made my changes, and I think we have a very nice essay here that really emphasizes the importance of the cultural institutions. And I think the title, A Theater a Day Keeps the Doctor Away, kind of still fits. It still serves its purpose. And I think we've made some nice changes to this essay. If you have other changes you would make, or maybe you would add something else, let me know in the comments. So these are the changes I would make to this essay to go from the essay that we had to something that's a bit more formal. As you noticed, I really put a lot of emphasis on avoiding you and your throughout this essay. And I wanted to do something with vocabulary as well, so I kind of added some extra words. And you can do this by using something like a thesaurus, or maybe ask Grammarly or ChatGPT to give you some nice synonyms for the words that you're using. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments, what would you change to this essay and which changes would you make? If you want to know when one of my other videos comes out, don't forget to subscribe. For now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in one of my next videos.